All right, so we're going to try and do this super fast. I'm very bad at doing things super fast, but we just wrote this up. Should be easy. So, I am in-ish the D&D TTRPG Twitter space, and I've noticed that maybe it's just that I'm anti-confrontational, not very confrontational, not very argumentative, but there seems to be a very hard strain of criticism that's just like this criticism, right? Make them uncomfortable, show them the exit ramp. That's not really my style, even though as we go through this, I'll give you a link to this guy. I'll go through, yeah, put his link tree in the video so that you can sort of, if you're more aggressive than I am and like that style, go right ahead. But I was like, well, is this article really that bad? Like, it probably is because let's face it, most D&D articles are pretty bad. But I couldn't find it until I realized, oh, that's the short title Google provides, not the actual article. Even here, you can see it's the what they put up here, but here's the actual title that the headline writer and the author ended up agreeing on. That's not nearly as basic sounding a title as this. So we read on, and yeah, it's a pretty basic, right? Gameplay differences that are we get very gamey terms like healers, frontline fighters, tanks. So very gamey, and I was like, okay, um, I wasn't that impressed with it, but I also didn't care because this was written for an introduction to paladins and clerics. It's the sort of off the cuff conversation you'd have with a friend who was like, "Hey, my vision for a character is a holy warrior. Which of these do you think fits better?" And you'd give them this sort of 10,000 foot view, like, "Hey, here's the differences." Oh, geez, can we close that ad? So coming back, that was it. Like I was gonna just end it there, like, oh, that's fine. It's a overview. No one cares. So I kept reading the article because I was like, I'm sure there'll be something in here to criticize, and there is. Specifically here, clerics get nothing of the sort aside from their basic proficiency in simple weapons and light and medium armor, and can't be holding anything in their hands to cast a spell with a somatic component. Well, and here it is in the article link if you're just worried that I somehow had the energy to make all of that up. But see, that's not true, right? Because a holy symbol can get mounted on a shield. So a shield is in your hand. So that's not true. And we also notice that they've got light, medium armor, shields, and simple weapons. So here's where I kind of got to the point where I was like, well, those are just wrong. But it gets worse. Of course, it gets worse. Otherwise, I wouldn't be trying to be putting this together to explain why this article is bad, but not just from a gatekeep, kick them off the on ramp or whatever point of view, but it is objectively going to not help you play a cleric correctly. Because this isn't just the slip up. This isn't just they were listing some proficiencies and they forgot about it. Here we're talking about clerics. We need this part because, that way we know who they is. We need to know where the pronoun is pointing to. They is clerics. Clerics have fewer hit dice compared to paladins and lack proficiency with shield and heavy armor. Now, they do lack proficiency with heavy armor unless you pick one of the many subclasses that get access to heavy armor. But there's two things wrong here. One is the easy one, because we just saw here, cleric, class features, zoop. Maybe not that much of a zoop. There we go. Shields. So that's wrong. Just flat out wrong. But here's the other one that's a little bit harder to catch. Do clerics have fewer hit dice than paladins? Obviously not. Your hit dice is equal to your level, right? We know that. Let's go back here. Cleric, hit dice, 1d8 per cleric level. Paladins, do they get more than one hit die? No, they get one. What the author means here is either fewer hit points compared to paladins, which maybe not even that true. The average is what, 5 on the cleric's hit die, 6 on the paladins, and paladins sometimes skimp more on their con than clerics do, especially caster clerics who just need wisdom and con. If you're trying to use your charisma at all as a paladin, you're starting to eat into your con budget. So maybe it's not even true that paladins will have more hit points. On average, probably, but not necessarily. But the real issue is that the fewer hit dice. So here in this one paragraph, we've got two things that are just factually wrong. But the biggest thing that is wrong here is talking about they can't be holding anything in their hands. Because while it's true that a lot of the good cleric spells have somatic components, there's a simple fact that when you move or take an action, you can draw or sheath a weapon. Which, if you're using your action to cast a spell, you probably don't need your weapon out. And if you've got your material components on your shield, assume you're the other handedness, the shield with a holy symbol, and your somatic component hand, every time you take an action, you can freely draw or stow a weapon. You can have things in your hand as a cleric. And if you tell your cleric players, no, you can't, A, you're just wrong on the rules. But B, you're really getting in the way of a lot of how clerics are supposed to play, which is being this sort of mixed martial divine caster, especially with like stowing the weapon to cast cure wounds. I know everyone casts healing word because it's more action efficient, whatever. Some people like the D8 over the D4. Whatever. Point is, there's a lot of reasons that you can have things in your hands as a cleric and still be casting spells. And there we talk about that. Here we talk about this. This was that everything? Yeah. So I think I come to the same conclusion. This is a bad article. It's not a bad article though because we should gatekeep a hobby or because, strategy guide tourists. No, it's a bad article because the rules are wrong. If this was a very basic intro to here's the difference between clerics and paladins, clerics have more spells, and so if you see yourself as more mystical, maybe go with a cleric. Clerics have a little more room for role playing because you can be more of a scholar, you can be more of this. Like if that had been more of the article, I think I wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, this isn't something I need because I'm not a beginner, but it's all right for beginners. It's a good intro. But the rules are just wrong, and that's why it's a bad article. We shouldn't make them feel uncomfortable about it. Like the gamer website or whatever. I don't want you or whoever the author was. Let's authors are usually at the top, right? Sinead McDevitt. I don't want these people uncomfortable. I don't want to kick them out of the hobby. I want them to write better articles because that improves the hobby. Anyway, did I do it in under 10 minutes? 9 minutes. Excellent. All right, we're done.